here from the Tank in Brooklyn. I'm here today with one of my best friends in the whole world, Elisabeth Goodman.
Hey, Ezra.
Or Lizzy Goodman, as I call her. Do you want to be called Lizzy?
I mean, people call me Lizzy.
Okay, Lizzy Goodman. So Lizzy is a writer for New York Magazine, Elle, Fast Company, Billboard,
Rolling Stone, etc., etc.
So you're like a badass in this world.
Yes, that's my technical title, yeah.
So, copywriting, which is what we're talking about today, we're going to do a couple posts on copywriting, is such it's a subject that really has people feel confronted and scared, and there's not a lot of good copywriters out there. Well, there's actually a lot of good copywriters, but people have this belief that there's not a lot of good copywriters out there. They get really afraid when it comes to writing copy for their offers, and I firmly believe that marketing is messaging, and communication is what it takes to be successful in business. And why do you think it is that people are so freaked out by copy and writing and communicating their offers?
It's a lot of exposure. If you put a sentence down on a piece of blank paper, you're sort of making a statement about yourself. And that's always really terrifying. It's like, there was nothing here and now there's something here and I made it and please judge it. It's scary.
Yeah.
I mean, the blank page is the metaphor of that is something that tortures everybody, not just professional writers. I think everyone feels a certain fear of being judged for how they express themselves.
Straight up. Really, no, truly. I mean, you are being vulnerable when you write, right? Because you're communicating how you feel about something.
Exactly.
Before we go any further, I actually want to know a little bit about your story. So, you have made it to the pinnacle of journalism, right?
I mean, I of course would not phrase it that way because you always want to have I don't think about that, but I do. I've been doing this for more than a decade, and I have gotten to write as I've gone on for impressive publications where there are really incredible editors and other writers, and I feel really lucky and aware of the process that got me there.
Can you tell us a little bit about your story? So,
sure.
Where did you start? Where are you now? How did you get there?
This one's always a little tricky. It's how far do you go back? I was always interested in writing. I kept journals from an early age and kind of...
Did you have that experience of people saying hey, you cannot do this thing. You can't get where you want to go in this field?
Sure. Especially, there's especially music journalism, which is how I started out and is a big part of what I still do. Being a rock writer is a little bit like saying you want to be an astronaut. It's
well,
okay, cute.
I think we should point out that you are a woman. Right?
Yes.
That's apparent, right? It's obvious. But I think in this field, look, that's
No. It's not, we joke about it because it's yes, obviously. But it's an especially, journalism in and of itself is already a boys club, and rock journalism in particular is a boys club. I worked at Rolling Stone on staff, and I worked at Blender, which is no longer in existence, but used to be another big national music magazine. And at both of those places, for the majority of the time that I was there, I was the only woman on the editorial side of the magazine. And
how did that feel?
That was, what's scary about it, I think, is it doesn't feel different at all. You sort of become used to the idea of being the only girl around, and then that's a kind of dark thing. Yeah, but you don't know it. It's sort of that metaphor that they have in psychology about you put a frog in a frying pan and turn on the heat slowly. You don't realize that you're being cooked alive slowly but surely.
Are they cooking frogs?
I didn't feel yes, that's the secret truth about no, they were not. No, it wasn't as specific. It wasn't. I wouldn't say that's an exact metaphor, but the idea of you're used to certain things being a certain way and you don't realize necessarily that they're skewed. That's something that I think everyone can relate to, whether you're dealing, whatever kind of ism you're dealing with, whether it's sexism or racism or...
I bring it up because in our field as business owners, entrepreneurs, marketers, oftentimes people who go out on their own, who want to create their own thing, have that same experience. There's
stigma everywhere, and the idea of if you have something, a quality about your persona, whether you're a woman or you're of a minority race or whatever it is, that's visually obvious, the stigma becomes more overt because it's everyone can see this about you, but there's all kinds of stigma. And I think that it is one of the advantages of being, and why I work for myself now, why I've enjoyed that so much, is that you do have a little bit more control over how your work life goes. And if I don't like the way that I'm being treated somewhere, I don't have to work there anymore.
That's right.
And that's pretty awesome.
So you were like a...
Yeah, so I was in college, I was always interested in writing and always kind of had aptitude for that. And then in college, I kept trying to go to law school. I kept trying to sign up for the LSAT, and I kept sort of not taking it. And I had gotten really into music and into...
I could see you as a lawyer.
Yeah.
Actually, I couldn't see you as a lawyer.
You could see me trying to become a lawyer. Yeah, that would be very me. There are a lot of lawyers in my family. But I was interested in music, and I really wanted to pursue writing about it. And a lot of exciting stuff was happening in music during the time that I was in college. But it felt like a fantasy, as a lot of people feel, to be able to pursue this thing that I was secretly into. So I kind of made my way to New York City under the guise of other jobs. I taught school for a little while, and then I started interning. I interned at Spin Magazine. That was my first real thing, and I wrote for England for a while.
Interrupt you for a second.
Sure.
Which is a good lesson here. Is that cool?
Yes.
Okay, I'm doing it.
Interrupt me.
A good lesson here. She started as an intern, right? And often just getting into the community of people, like where you want to go, networking with that group of people, making those connections is a really important step, I think, on a lot of people's journey, as they met the right people through an internship or through whatever. Well,
and I think I have a couple of interns now for a series of projects I'm working on, and they always ask me, what should I be doing to get to write for a living? And I always say, walk through the doors that are open to you. Like internships, we work in an industry. If you work in an industry that doesn't have a traditional structure, like if you go to law school, then you apply for jobs as a lawyer, and they're looking at law schools. So there's sort of a natural transition. When you work in a field like journalism, or like a lot of what your clients are doing, there's no structure. It's not like, here's your entry point. You have to go in however you can get in and make as many contacts as possible and expose yourself to the inner workings of how the industry works. No one can teach you how to do that. Like I know plenty of people who went to journalism school, and I think have learned a lot about the structure of writing from that, but you still have to start at an internship level, even if you have a degree in my field.
And I think that is what makes entrepreneurship or fields where you are, would you say self-employed?
Yeah.
Fields where you're self-employed scary, is that there really is no like A to B, right? You just got to get in there and do it. And I think when it comes back to copywriting, which is what we're talking about today, that's the same thing. Like if you want to get good at this, you just have to start doing it. Start expressing yourself. And we were talking before this post, before we started recording here a couple days ago, about what we were going to talk about. One of the things that you said was that a writer's voice, this stuck out in my head, needs to have many shades. I want to know kind of...
What does that mean? Yeah. Well, one of the things that I confront a lot in my field is people battling this difference between art and commerce. Like, are you an artist writer, or are you a commercial writer? And I just kind of have no patience. Well, anyone who's learned, so am I.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean I don't have integrity about what I do, or I'm up for just writing anything, like just come to my lemonade stand and I'll write something for you. It's not like that. What it means, though, and what I meant by that comment, is you have to be adaptable. Everything that you write has to belong to you, has to belong to your own voice and be spoken in your own voice. But if a client, and if you're writing for your own website or whatever you're trying to create, maybe you're your own client in that moment, but there are goals and needs that copy has to fill, and you shouldn't be afraid to keep those in mind as you construct prose. That doesn't mean there's plenty of assignments I turn down because I just don't think that my voice will suit that assignment. But when I write for Elle, or I write for New York Magazine, or I write a musician profile or a sports person profile, like an athlete profile, I change certain elements of how I'm writing to suit that. And I think that that's important, not to be afraid of making those kinds of accommodations.
So the tone of your communications are going to be different on your sales page than they are going to be for your welcome video, right? Like you're going to have these different types of communications that you're making in your copywriting, because ultimately copywriting and messaging in marketing is just communicating. That's all it is. Telling people what you think or what you feel or what's going on in XYZ, offer that you're making. And so I want to talk a little bit about formula, because ultimately our goal here is that you come away from this video feeling more confident about your ability to write your own copy. Because I think that for your core offers, because look, you've only got a couple core offers most likely, you should be the one who does that initial communication, because nobody knows it better than you. So How do you feel about that?
Am
I getting a little too?
No.
Okay,
I totally agree with that.
So, formula.
Yeah.
Adherence to formula. I see this a lot, right? Because I deal with thousands of entrepreneurs every year who are crafting offers, who are trying to communicate to people why what they have is good. And they get like a formula from some copywriting guru or some copywriting teacher, and they're like sticking to that thing. And we talked about that as like a negative.
Yeah. I always think about this quote I heard from Denzel Washington when I think about this, which is he prepares an amazing amount for each of his roles, like tons of research, reads everything there is, like total nerd out, like must know every last detail about this person I'm playing. And then on day one on the set is like, that's all out the window. Like I'm done even looking at that or thinking about that in a conscious way. Structure in writing is super important, like paramount. And I think that people move towards the idea of formula for good reason and with good intention, which is like, what am I supposed to put here? What are the main elements that needs to be included in each of these sort of semi-formulaic pieces on my website or in my presentation or whatever it is? And you don't want to be long-winded and you want to have structure. So I get it, like formula matters. But after you've kind of downloaded that sense of what needs to be there, then you want to throw it out. Because what I see a lot everywhere in writing is this kind of really narrow, fearful sentences. Like, I know this is supposed to be here, so I am going to write it now. And it feels really inauthentic, and it's worse, I think, than just kind of having something that's a little unwieldy, because it's not personal, and people feel it, and they feel like you're afraid and you don't really know what you're doing and you don't really know what you're selling or what you're trying to express. And so that's my like big pet peeve of any kind of writing. It's like the priority is authenticity, not structure, but you need both.
Right. So you have your structure, right? Like you're opening, hey, this is who I am and this is what I'm going to tell you about. And then you tell them what you're going to tell them. It's the old tell them what you're going to tell them what you tell them, and then tell them what you told them. That's a good, it's like sort of a common structure.
You've said that before, and I like that. I borrowed that.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, and that's not mine. I didn't come up with it. I heard that somewhere. I've studied
Well, thank you, person
whoever
came up with that.
So structure is important, right? You want to, so when I write a lot of our copy here at Smart Marketer for all of our offers, and then I have someone like my wife, who's a brilliant copywriter, who's filming this, by the way. Hi. We are big fans of her.
We are big fans of your wife.
She makes an appearance in every video. Because like every video I'm always like, she's
that
so
does
great.
Not surprise me.
Thank you, audience, for being willing to deal with me like gushing on her. So here's the thing. You got to have that formula. And for any communication that you're going to make, you want to first, or at least the way that I do it, you can do it however you want, but I'm giving you my suggestions, is figure out the structure. Hey, I'm going to do an opening, and then I'm going to tell them this, and then I'm going to tell them that. And then just talk. Just like as if you were talking to, if you wanted to explain it to yourself. How would you explain this thing if you were trying to tell yourself? Does that make sense?
The sort of technique that's often used in my line of work specifically is tell your friend. I will literally, when I'm struggling with when I can feel I'm tight, like I'm writing too much to structure, I will take, just to trick my mind, whatever I'm working on and put it in an email box, like on Gmail, and act as if, and take all the kind of formatting out of it, the formal formatting from Word or whatever, and just write it. Just the experience of seeing it in an email box will loosen me up. And I think those techniques, I mean, these are sort of mind games that we play.
What did you just say?
So if you're feeling, when I'm feeling like I'm writing in an uptight way, which is what that means is I feel the pressure.
Contracted.
Yeah,
and
like my body,
scared.
I feel it in my body. Or like I know this piece, it often happens when I don't have a lot of space, which is something I'm sure that your clients are dealing with all the time. Like you feel
physical space?
No, well, sure that. But I mean, like say I have to write a certain number of words that's relatively small, and I have to put a large amount of information in that amount of words. That will make me feel like there's just no time, there's no space for the words, there's no space for all these thoughts, and I'll feel myself getting uptight in my sentence structure. To put it in the terms we're talking about here, I'm too obsessed with structure. I'm thinking way too much about this phantom thing that this needs to look like and not enough about telling the truth. So often when that happens, I will open up an email box and pretend that I'm writing a letter to a friend. I'm writing,
to kind of loosen you up.
To loosen me up. Say that this is just a dispatch from a vacation about this band that I just discovered. And just the visual trick of putting it in a non-formal document helps me relax.
If you could write it to me, you could put my email address in there, make it so,
I've used you for this before, so
Really?
thank you very much. Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So, this is a problem that Lizzy has because she gets these assignments from like the New York Magazine, and they're like, hey, you need to do this story on this musician in X number of words. We don't have that problem, guys. We got as long as we want to communicate our ideas. And I will tell you, my belief and my experience of crafting offers, because we're also talking about writing copy for video, right? Not just a sales copy on your page, is that the more the better, right? Like the more you communicate, obviously you don't want to be redundant and stuff, but feel free to just like let go. I took this course one time called Free Fall Writing, and have I told you about it?
No.
Okay, so this is like, I did not believe I could write. I like had the viewpoint that I cannot write. I am not a writer. I can't express myself.
A lot of people have that.
Yeah, I really strongly felt that like the only way that I could express myself was verbally. I didn't think I had the ability to write. And so what they do is it's like a 3-day course, and I don't know, a whole bunch of stuff happens. It's like 8 years ago now, so I don't really remember. But basically what you do, the fundamental technique is you cover your computer screen. So you can't see what's on your computer. And you sit down for like 3 hours at a time, and you just stream of consciousness, just whatever happens. And the next thing you know, you have like these long, big stories, and some of the best stuff I think I've ever written came from that course. So stream of consciousness writing is really good. Like, think about what your offer is, and then just start writing as how you would talk about it.
There's one more thing that I want to say about that, which just is this idea of there being a right answer. I think this is something that plagues almost anyone who ever tries to put words to a page of any kind, even if it's spoken, by the way, even if it's a script for a video. You are not, the right answer does not exist. Like, before we sat down to film this video, there wasn't up in the cloud somewhere a series of perfect sentences that had to get said in order to make sense to people. Like, it is what you put down. So, I mean, this is something that's helped me a lot, just realizing that when I sit down to write something, I'm not writing for a grade, I'm not writing for a pre-existing sort of template that someone is going to know is right, and this is, whatever I produce will be judged against that. It's right if you communicate the thing that you're trying to communicate. That's the beginning and end of the sort of spectrum of judging it. That's it.
Yeah, and I think that I agree with that. You
Good.
are right.
Thank you.
So last thing before we end this post is that if you're going to hire a copywriter, which is a cool thing to do, right? We are pro you hiring someone to do your copy for you. Oftentimes, the experience that I have when I hire sales copywriters is that they have the desire to be really aggressive in their communications of the offer. And so I think it would really benefit you to first do your best to communicate what this thing is, and then maybe pass it to someone to polish it. So Lizzy Goodman, Ezra Firestone from the Tank in Brooklyn. Lizzy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We will be back to talk about storytelling because we believe that stories are what sell and stories are what engage people. So in the next post with Lizzy Goodman, we'll talk about storytelling. So thanks so much. Catch you in the next one. Do you want to mention anything about like where people do you care if people find you, or do you have that like? I mean, well, maybe smartmarketer.com is where they'll find you. Sure. Yeah, because my website doesn't. Yeah, we're gonna fix our website, but yes, Ezra's fixing my website. On one of our next posts, we'll mention your website. That would be great. Okay. Cool. Thanks. Bye.